To waterboard or not to waterboard? Should the White House reconsider enhanced interrogation since it led to bin Laden's killing? Listeners weigh in across the country in the Radio Rumble. Next.
Enhanced interrogation techniques may have helped get intel used to track down bin Laden, but the White House is against using these techniques in the future. So, what do Americans think? Let's turn to our Radio Rumble. Joining me now from Orlando, Mark Bernier. From Washington, D.C., Mark Levine. And David Webb here in New York. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning,
Gretchen. Hey, good morning, Gretchen.
All right, Mark, so I'm going to have to call you by your last name so that you know who I'm talking to, if you don't mind this morning. So, Bernier, let me start with you down in Florida. What are your listeners saying post-bin Laden killing about the techniques?
Well, they're saying let it go. I mean, what's all this whining about the use of waterboarding? I mean, you got the same people who would put a bullet into bin Laden's head now saying, oh, this is too severe. You have a controlled method of deriving information that might lead to a killer. And I use the simplest format, Gretchen. If you had a child who was captured and you had to use waterboarding to find out where she was to get her safe returned, wouldn't you use it?
Mm-hmm. I mean, Levine, isn't that true that most parents, most human beings would say that if it brought a loved one back home, that you would probably agree with using it? Is your concern that it will be overused, or you just don't like it at all?
Well, I think it's overused. I think it's illegal. I think it's immoral. And I don't think it works. I mean, would those parents be willing to torture the perpetrator's child in order to get their child back? Where does it stop? Are they willing to rape somebody's wife? This is illegal. It's illegal under the United States Constitution, under the 8th Amendment. It's also illegal under 3 treaties we signed under 4 separate laws. So the real question is, should the President of the United States violate his oath to uphold the Constitution because he thinks it might work, when in this particular case, it doesn't seem like it worked at all?
And yet, David, I'm looking at the notes that Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, we used it on him, and apparently he gave up the information about the courier, Abu Zubaydah, Ramzi bin al-Shibh. I mean, all of these main people that we seem to have captured and then interrogated on the whole war on terror, apparently we used enhanced interrogation techniques to get that information.
Yes, we did. And let's be clear about something, Mark. 3 people were waterboarded by the CIA, not Department of Defense, and nobody was waterboarded at Guantanamo. However, March 2011 FOIA, Freedom of Information Act by Judicial Watch, got the memos that said that enhanced interrogation and those methods helped give us all that significant information, including the genesis, that nugget that said this is a courier, and that led to the process. And the president, who, by the way, now wants us to use the Army Field Manual, will not turn around and let us use process when he kills terrorists overseas without due process. It's a little bit confusing, but let's talk about reality here.
Well, Mark Bernier, so let me get your thoughts on that, because moving forward, I think Americans want to know, what are we going to do? Because if, in fact, this worked in killing bin Laden, what about the future terrorists that we're going to go out and try and get?
You know, I think the president did the right thing in taking out bin Laden in this method. And, you know, it was by executive order that they put in this idea and ruling that you can't single out a person for assassination. But let's deal in the real world. If they have our people, they'll use anything they can to get information out of them. Why do we have to be the set-aside good guy? Why are we the only ones?
Because we're not them.
Let me have Levine respond to that.
It's done on, but it's done on a limited basis. It's in a controlled atmosphere. Do it. They're not killing them. They're making them uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. And I say, don't take this off the table.
Levine?
We are not terrorists. We are not them. George Washington and Abraham Lincoln both were against torture, and I got to tell you, the Revolutionary War and the Civil War were a lot more threatening to the United States, and it's a real stretch to say that it got bin Laden. I can't let go of the idea that somehow waterboarding Khalid Sheikh Mohammed led to this courier. Let's recall what happened. The guy that told us the courier, his name was Hassan Ghul, was not waterboarded. We found out in 07, and Khalid Sheikh Mohammed told us a lie.
I don't want to get mired down in names of all these people. I got to give David the final word before we wrap up.
Yeah, look,
can tell us a lie without torture.
Here's the reality, Gretchen. This is a tool that the president should have in a crucial or time-sensitive situation. It is legal, Mark. It actually has gone through the process. And you can claim all you want and all the histrionics, but the reality is that when needed and when used, it provided significant information. Again, and you can go to the National Archives. There are declassified documents that back this up. And this administration,
All right,
this administration got what it wanted out of this.
I think the question remaining for Americans questions is what happens in the future. Guys, thanks very much for a very interesting
Don't take it off
Radio
the table.
Rumble. Thanks very much.
Use the law.